Hi everyone. My name is Holly, and I am from South Korea originally. And I was a student at NCC between 2004 and 2007. And then after graduating from the school, I moved on to study physics at University of Toronto, where I took 3 years off to travel around the world and go and hike in mountains in Nepal and India. And then I moved on to study ice sheets and sea level at McGill University at 2015. And then I just graduated from the school with I'm still embarrassed to talk about this, but with a doctor in Earth and Planetary Sciences. And now I am doing research as a postdoc researcher. So that means like postdoctoral researcher at Los Alamos National Laboratory, where you guys might know the Second World War II was done over with the huge bomb explosion from the United States on Japan, Nagasaki, and Hiroshima into 1945, so that those nuclear bombs were developed at Los Alamos National Laboratory. So that's where the lab started its history, and then it went off to do a lot of research on global security. So that includes climate change, obviously, because the world is in danger in the face of climate change. So yeah, I'm doing research in ice sheet and sea level changes within the scope of climate science at Los Alamos National Laboratory. And I just gathered some pictures when I was, so this is um, back in 2007. This is when I first met Miss Bailey. So this on the far right hand side, that's her. And everyone's like now looking at the picture, I should have put it up larger. And this is me, and this is my friend Janelle. We went to badminton tournament in OFSA, and this is Mr. Bourdon, who was the PE teacher at the time. So this is a picture that I have from what 14 years ago. Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
So
crazy. It
yeah,
doesn't feel like
this
14
is
years ago.
this is 14 years ago. And yeah, so this is when I was in grade 12, so probably the same grade as you guys are in now. And then my time at NCC was great. It was all different from the COVID time, obviously, but we had this whole class of people, and we went to watch sports games, like hanging out in the library and playing sports in a soccer team and things like that. So yeah, that's me.
You were quite active here at NCC, especially
I
in sports, right? You
Yeah,
played pretty much every sport.
right, right. I
Yeah,
did.
went to OFSA. How did you guys do at OFSA? I forget how well you did when you and Janelle went to OFSA for
Um,
badminton.
yeah, so we didn't really win that many games, and we didn't make it to the top of. So I was the one who would get really angry whenever losing the games, and Janelle would be the one who's always nice to opponents and say like, "Oh, good games," and she just complimented the other team, and I would always get mad at her like, "Why are you being so nice to them? We just lost against them." So yeah, we didn't really do very well, but it was already a big achievement from um, in this perspective of our school that we went to OFSA for badminton. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, it was wonderful having you here as a student. It's wonderful having you visit us again.
yeah,
Yeah, you were back on campus for an alumni event a couple years ago and have been reconnecting with our school. So I really appreciate you taking your time today to speak with our students.
yeah. It's my
I'll give my
pleasure.
students an opportunity here to introduce themselves. So we're all kind of scattered in distance around this room.
Hmm.
Casimir, why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll just kind of go around so that you can introduce yourself and maybe say one thing about like where you're from or what you're interested in around this topic.
So my name's Casimir Okorie. I'm from Nigeria, and I'm in grade 11 doing this course, mostly because I've never really done a course like this. So I just wanted to gain the experience and learn more about the topics that we're going to be taught. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Casper. What's your interest in as of now?
Right now, I'm still trying to decide what I'm gonna like push forward to. Like, I'm still like keeping my options there, not
That's
trying to
good.
be too like
That's good.
focused on that decision at this moment in time because I still have like 2 years. So yeah, that's kind of it. But I'm just trying to do as many different topics I've never done before so that I have like a good variety of decisions to make.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate that respect. I was just like that too. That's great. So keeping your options open and being interested in many other things and keep exploring. Yeah, thanks.
Hello, my name is Moyo Suri Aminu. I'm also from Nigeria, and this is like my first time taking a course like this, and it's very intriguing. And I actually like the experience that I get from it. But right now, I'm actually more of a business student. I think I want to do like business in uni, and I think like my mind is already made up on that.
That's great. Business is something that
Yeah,
I always wanted to explore and I never got a chance. But that's awesome. Thanks.
thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm in grade 12, and I picked this course because I was interested in climate change and the effects it has on people and the environment. I'm also from Nigeria as well.
That's everyone. But are you in Canada now?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually can see that you have a Oh Canada behind you.
Yeah.
Are you guys all in the same space right
Yes.
now? Okay, cool. Well, thanks, Michelle. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name.
I think you're cutting off.
Hold on, yeah. Something's, your mic isn't working there. Give it another shot. Yeah, it's not working. Can you just disconnect your headphones and just let your natural mic pick it up? Maybe something was going on with your headphones.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, my name is Ekemini, and I'm in grade 12. I'm also from Nigeria, and I joined this course because I wanted to learn about alternative sources you could use for things like fossil fuels, like renewable energy, basically. And since I was going into law, environment law was kind of like also a possibility.
Environmental laws.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Like within the region or global law
Global.
or global. That's really relevant for, especially with all the COP26 meetings going on, right? Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Akamini. Yeah.
Yeah, so we just, so we, yeah, we're all here in the same space. It's a unique class because it's so small and they're all from Nigeria. So we've been able to kind of focus a lot too on their personal interests. And yeah, really dynamic group of 4 young people here that have some really cool perspectives and directions they want to go in life. So yeah, I'm really proud of the work that they've been doing. They didn't necessarily all want to take this class when it was the option at first for choosing classes. Some of them kind of fell into this class, but I think I'm assuming, I can look around. I think yesterday they were sharing with another course, sharing about environmental advocacy with a music class that is writing a song right now about taking care of nature. And they all said that they've actually gotten something out of the course. So this is great.
Awesome.
It's good to hear at the end of a course.
For sure.
So yeah, we just wanted to know, you gave us a little bit about your story and your background. What are you doing now? Like, how did you end up where you are? And what's your job at Los Alamos, and what are you specializing in?
Right. So before answering all that, going into all the details, I just want to say that everyone can feel free to just stop me and ask me questions in the middle. And you just call me Holly, right? Yeah, so just call me Holly and ask me questions. You can stop me if you don't understand anything or if you have any following questions. So yeah, just wanna put it out there. Um, so I don't know how much like more details you guys are interested in, but I've also put some slides in terms of science, so I can kind of like show you a motivation and what I'm doing for what I'm doing at Los Alamos, if that works with you. Yeah. Okay. So first of all, the reason why I started going into this is because I love nature. I like going out and exploring nature, traveling. So, for example, like I would just go out in Siberia, Russian lake, and then just be on the lake and explore how nature is formed. So, I like exploring outside on the earth. At the same time, I majored physics at university. And the reason why I chose that path is not necessarily because I was good at physics or I liked physics. Physics wasn't my like best favorite subject, but I wanted to take physics in order to understand the nature better. And physics is a subject that can be really dry and really tough and really difficult to understand, but at the same time, if you take a step back and then try to understand what's the subject is about, it's really about understanding nature with language that is math. So math is not necessarily, oh, 2 times 3 is equal to 6. It's not just algebraic operations, but it's more of a language that is used to describe the laws of nature. So that's what physics is and how math is used in physics. So I studied that in university. And then after that, I wanted to keep learning about nature because after graduating from school, I realized that I didn't really know anything still. I wanted to know more and learn more. So I got into Earth and Planetary Sciences, which was basically um, using the laws of physics and trying to apply physics to understand the Earth. And there are many subfields like astrophysics or quantum physics, as you've heard, and those are different subfields of physics. Whereas I chose to do geophysics or the Earth physics. So going into climate changes, we know that human activities are caused by, human activities cause the Earth's surface to warm. And also, please ask me questions. I'm going to kind of dive into the logic and also the story of my research with these slides. Um, so yeah, this graph is showing how the Earth's surface temperature varied over time in the last 1,000 years relative to 2000. And then we can see that the temperature has risen really drastically in a very fast rate after 1850s. So this is before pre-industrial time, where humans started to use all these machines and burn fossil fuels to generate energy. And then these red is where the scientists have gathered year by year data from all the thermometers around the globe. And so that we can clearly see that this rates is just not normal compared to the rates that happened that showed before. So we scientists have said, well, these warmings are mostly human caused. And how do we know that? That is, so this is again showing the global surface temperature change since the um, Industrial Revolution, 1850. And this is the year. So this is year 2020 and then year 2000. And these different colors show the temperature changes because of different reasons. So the black lines show observations. So what we've observed in terms of how global temperature has changed over time. And scientists ran computer simulations to using just natural causes as a source of climate change. And then they could only come up with this green lines, which doesn't match with observations. And also with blue ones where aerosols is like a small dust particles in the air when it gets emitted from burning fossil fuels and human activities. They actually reflect sunlight from coming into the Earth's atmosphere. So that has some cooling effects. So when you take that cooling effects, it doesn't still match with observations. And the only way to match the simulations with these observations is when we actually combine the human activities and natural causes of climate change together. So this is how we know that human activities has been current dominant drivers of the climate change or the global warming. So this is how we know that the climate change is caused by human. I think this was one of the questions that was asked by the students. Yeah. And then as the surface temperature of the Earth warms, we also melt polar ice sheets. So there are still ice sheets sitting in North America, in Greenland and in Antarctica, and because of the global sea level, global temperature rise, those ice sheets melt, and also when you take up when water, so ocean water takes up so much heat from global warming, then the water expands. So that is called thermal expansion. And so when you boil water, that also expands, same as ocean water with rising global temperature expands. So that has been another contributor to global sea level rise. But if you think about it, it's not actually the extra water mass that comes in to rise sea level. It's the water itself just expanding in volume because it takes up more heat. So there are these different reasons why sea level would rise in response to global temperature changes. So this shows that sea level rise, so the speed or rate of sea level rise has been lower in the past. So it was about 0.7 millimeters per year in the first 1900s. And then after 1950s, the sea level rise rate has increased up to 2 millimeters per year. And then now it's close to 3.3 millimeters per year. So you can see that how sea level rise, the speed of sea level rise has been rising. Is everything clear, or does anyone have any questions so far? Okay.
I definitely want them to interact and ask questions.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. So I'm kind of talking to my students in the room. We were talking about like, what are those causes of sea level rising? And I think the popular culture answer that we hear from the media is that it's about the melting ice sheets and the melting icebergs that are adding to the volume. But did you guys catch that she was saying it's more that thermal expansion, which I think is kind of new information for us to think of the physics, right? Of the how water expands when heated, and that expansion is causing that rise.
For
That's
sure.
really, really interesting.
Yeah. So that is these rise in this increase in rate of sea level rise in the early 21st century. So far, and then throughout the 19th century has been the global thermal expansion. But then now what's going to happen in the future? This is the question that a lot of us are asking. And then a lot of us basically what the COP26 is trying to do is, well, we have to limit global warming in order for sea level rise to be smaller than anticipated, and just try to avoid the dramatic consequences. And so what's the future holds is the question. And now, after we have thermal expansion contributing as being as a dominant contributor to sea level rise, in the future, it's going to be those polar ice sheets that are going to contribute to the sea level rise most dramatically. So these are the largest potential contributors to future sea level rise. So Greenland ice sheet holds about 6 meters. Upon the complete collapse of the ice sheet, the global mean sea level rise will be around 6 meters. And then Antarctica ice sheet holds about 60 meters global mean sea level equivalent volume. But Antarctica sheet also has this west part and then eastern part. So western Antarctica sheet has about 7 meters out of this 60 meters, and then east Antarctica sheet has about 53 meters to 54 meters. But they are in different settings. So Western Antarctic ice sheet is the ones that we hear most often from the media because it sits under the ocean which is also warming, whereas East Antarctic ice sheet sits up above the sea level, so on the ground. So it is mostly influenced by the atmospheric warming, whereas West Antarctic ice sheet has this both atmospheric and also the ocean warming effect that is endangering the collapse of the Western Antarctic ice sheet. So we have these polar ice sheets that are now going to melt away in the coming, depending on the warming levels of the global temperature. And so this is the sea level projections based on different warming scenarios. So RCP 8.5, these RCP scenarios are kind of like a scenario of future emissions. So future greenhouse gases emission scenarios. So this 8.5 is the most dramatic. It's the path that the human will take if we don't act now. And this 2.6 is the one that we are trying to reach at the COP 26 meeting and Paris Agreement, and reaching the net zero by 2050 is something that we are trying to reach, and then that's based on this curve. So you can see how just different the projections are. And then you see these solid lines are kind of like an average projection for each scenario. So these huge bars is the uncertainty. So it means that under 8.5 RCP 8.5 scenario, the sea level rise, global mean sea level rise can be anywhere between 2.3 to 5 point something. So that's 3 meters of uncertainty. And that is a quite large uncertainty. And where does this uncertainty comes from? It comes from our lack of understanding in ice sheet dynamics, because ice sheets interact with a lot of different environmental components, which comes in the later in the following slide. But yeah, so we have incomplete understanding in of ice sheet physics, and we also don't know how other things are going to change, like human behaviors under different forcing scenarios. So when these are all taken into account, it just creates a large, huge uncertainty bars. So our goal at in the community is to really narrow this uncertainty down, make this uncertainty smaller by improving the understanding of the ice sheet physics and things like that.
I have a question.
Hmm.
Um, do you well, with all of these graphs, the stats don't look so they don't look promising due to like the lack of information we have about this. But do you personally believe that the goals that have been set could be reached on those certain like due dates, like in a couple decades? Do you think those goals could be reached?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, and that is basically it is up to us. So whether that will be reached or that will not be reached will heavily depend on how global community acts upon this. So say all this participating countries at COP 26 or IPCC, based on IPCC reports and G20 meetings, they are trying to negotiate who does how much, because it's really a global effort that we need to take right now. It can't be just one country that cuts down CO2 emission. It has to be all of us reaching net zero by 2050. And that really brings, it really just puts on questions of the human behavior and how each country will react to, or how each country will commit to their potential actions. So as a scientist, I can't say my answer can't be just yes or no. The thing is, it is still possible, but it'll be tough. We have to act now. That's the short answer. So one thing that we will discuss later also is that a lot of climate misinformation is that people say it is too late to act, and that's called climate doomism. So a lot of doomists who say, hey, we've already done the damage that the earth can take, and we are already committed to global temperature rise of more than 1.5 meters with what we've already done. It really doesn't matter what we do now and after, because we've already done the damage and that's it. We can't save the world. That's a lot of doomism repertoire, and that is a very dangerous thing because it really takes away hope from people, and that makes people hopeless and doesn't care and just really uh, just not act. Because you might say, oh, what's the point of acting if you can't save the world? Like, there's no point. And it puts you in a desperate emotional state, and that's exactly a lot of this anti-climate change people are trying to just seed, sow in the community. So we have to watch out for that. Yeah, but it is certainly possible, and we have to. It'll take every country a lot, but it is, yeah, it is possible. Yeah. Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Sorry I'm
Yeah.
late. Thanks for having us.
That's okay. Yeah.
You were, Holly, you were talking about the sea level rise, and I think one of the questions here, can one of our students here in the room kind of ask the question we were curious about? Number 5 there.
Number 5. What, the question number 5, you mean? I think you're
Michelle's going to take it.
okay.
Okay, so the question is, countries in the West African regions that are around the coast,
Yeah.
are the predictions of places like Lagos one day being flooded and underwater possible? And how much of a rise is predicted?
Yeah, so that's also a great question, and obviously it's one way to effectively communicate climate change and pursue people to act is to introduce issues that feel closer to them, geographically and emotionally as well. So what first I want to say is we've seen that these projections are just, giving us this one number of global mean sea level. So like, say global mean sea level rise of 3.6, what does this mean for my location? Does that mean that my region will also increase in global sea level by 3.6 meters? The answer is no. And that is because there are a lot of processes going on. And so I just want to show you, well, we're kind of like jumping here and there, but that's totally fine. That's the point of this interactive session. So I just want to show you interactively on how your sea level change in your region or Nigeria. So let's see. So I pull this up and I can share it. Well, I can just send you the resource or the lab, the address for this website. So basically, if you just type in, like NASA sea level change tool, then it's the first thing that comes up here. So if you click on that, then we have this sea level projection tool where scientists have compiled all of the projections for each regions in globe. And so say this region here, right, this is West Africa, and I believe this is closer to Nigeria. This is like in Ghana, I looked up.
Sorry to interrupt you. Are you
Yeah.
sharing something specific that we are to look at? We're still looking at your sea level projections there.
Oh, okay. That's a good thing to know. Yes, I was trying to, I'm sharing something else, actually. Okay.
Gotta love the technology, trying to, it's like a
Yeah.
matrix, right?
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna, how about this?
There we go.
Okay. Okay. So you probably didn't see. So NASA sea level change tool, and then you go up here, the first one that shows up. And this is where you can basically just zoom in and see projections of sea level change in for the next 150 years or 130 years actually. So let's see 2100, and then we want to, and it's got a different components to the sea level change. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick total sea level change, but you can see that there are different components. So mountain glaciers melt, contribution to sea level rise, Greenland ice sheet collapse, sea level rise, and sea level rise related to Antarctica ice sheet changes, and all of this. And this stereodynamic sea level is the thermal expansion that we were just talking about. And vertical land motion is the one that the Earth's surface height changes because of different reasons, and it can be due to mantle dynamics, mantle convection, or changes in vertical motion because of ice sheet changes. So when ice sheets melt away, then the relief in the stress on the surface of the Earth causes the land to uplift. But yeah, let's look at total sea level by 2100. And these are different scenarios. So SSP scenario with, let's say like the lowest one. And let's go pick this here. And you can see that the full projection, for example, this location has 0.4 meters by 100 and by 2100 years, year 2100. And we can pick these different scenarios, and projected sea level under these different scenarios have about 0.5 meters by the next 100 years or next 130 years. And then we can pick, for example, this. Then we have this difference in projections that is about close to 0.8 meters changes. And then you can also go, oh, what if we take really aggressive, so this is probably unrealistic scenario where we've already passed to act limit the sea level rise up to 0.62. But this is what the COP26, or we are trying to target by reaching net zero by 2050. So yeah, it will be about 0.73. And let's see, this is, so you guys are 15 years old, 16, and say you will live until the age of 100. So 85 years later. So yeah, that'll be around here. So it'll be about 0.5 or 0.47 meters plus minus 0.2 meters in Tema. So that's West Africa, close to Lagos. But if we do this, then yeah, it's going to be about 0.8 meters. And this is a really dramatic projection. So, and then you can see this huge uncertainty, and this is dominated by the uncertainty related to the West Antarctic ice sheet collapse. So, do you remember when I talked about the West Antarctic ice sheet being very uncertain, and it's like submerged underwater? So we still don't know the full interactions of ice sheets with environment. So this is where this huge uncertainty comes from. With low confidence, these are all done with some probabilistic methods, and this is where, oh, this can be possible, but we are not really sure in our projection because of this huge uncertainty. So
When I have a quick question. So when we're sitting and we're watching the speeches that are being given by these world leaders, we have
mhm,
prime minister of president of the Maldives, for example, talking about how because the Maldives are at sea level, that this country is at threat of becoming completely covered in water and underwater.
mhm.
Do you think that the politicians are using the more extreme, like this, the 8.5 low confidence type data to be extreme in their language to produce fear? Or do you think that for political reasons, for political gain, to say, we're in this extreme situation, this is going to happen? Or do you think they're using more realistic data? Like, we're trying to sort out, you're coming at it from the scientific side of saying, we have all these numbers and we just don't know how bad it might be, or if it's possible to reach these goals. And then we see politicians and we see the extreme side of the media is what we in pop culture hear and see, and as students sitting in a classroom hear and see. How much do you think is influencing what we hear?
Yeah, totally. It's definitely the more, I think it can't not be exaggerated at this point. It is as dire as it is said in media, um, but it is not dire as to give up. So when politicians say things like that, it is all informed by scientists. So scientists are, our role is to inform the politicians, and even though we cannot change politics, we have responsibility to conduct or convey all the messages based on data to the politicians, so that they can be informed and then make the right decisions. So yes, it is not exaggerating. I think they are, and especially when they say things like that, they are mostly they're basing on all these projection scenarios. So they're saying, oh, this 8.5 scenario is so this one, red one, is basically the one that is based on fossil fuel economy, and this is when we just continue the business as usual activities, and this is what we're going to reach. And then that's the worst case scenario that they are talking about. And then that's why they're saying, okay, so we want to keep this path as low as possible, and let's commit to this global effort to limit the global warming by zero point 0.5 1.5 degree relative to the pre-industrial level. Yeah. So yeah, did that answer the question? It's, they're not just
Yeah,
making the things up.
I
It's
do wonder. Yeah, we were watching, right? We've
mhm,
been watching this COP26, some of the speakers and world leaders, and it makes you wonder how much of this is being exaggerating, how much
yeah,
is real. Is it sensationalizing for political gain or economic, reasons? So trying to sort that out. We do a lot of issue debate here.
mhm.
What's real and what's not. So it's interesting to hear that, yes, what we're hearing is just as dire and sad. It's also scary, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think if I've seen a lot of politicians using this narrative in an opposite way, basically by saying, oh, it's not as dire as the scientists say, therefore we can continue burning fossil fuels and in order to develop our economy. So it works. A lot of politicians use it in a more minimizing way, and kind of ignoring this impact and this data based information, just to kind of keep investing in fossil fuel economy. So yeah, when they say, um, well, presidents of Maldives, like he is basically in this submerging region. So this is great topic. I'm going to just show you where that guy is coming from. So when we say, okay, well, sea level rise is going to happen like a lot by a lot, but then what does it mean locally? And you see that these pattern is showing how sea level will change if Greenland ice sheet melts. So like the left-hand side plot shows just Greenland ice sheet melts away completely, and then this is what sea level change is going to look like. And normalized means that if Greenland ice sheet melts enough to rise the global sea level um, to rise by 1 meter, then um, this red region, for example, is going to rise by 1.4 meters. And these blue regions are the regions that have smaller rise in sea level when Greenland ice sheet melts. And then on the right-hand side, it's West Antarctic melting, and then the pattern of sea level change across the globe. And you can see these are really spatially non-uniform, and that is because there are changes in Earth surface. So the Earth like pops up when you melt ice sheet in the region. So it's really counterintuitive that the sea level near retreating ice sheet will actually fall because the Earth land pops up. And also, as we know, all of objects or all the objects with mass, we all have gravitational attraction. We attract with each other, right? Just Newton's law. So when there is a huge ice sheet with huge mass pulling the water towards it, now the water ice sheet melts away, then that gravitational attraction of the ice sheet on the water is now gone. So the water migrates away from its original position, and then the solid earth, the earth's surface pops up. So then when you melt Antarctic ice sheet, for example, then you are going to experience sea level fall in the region. And that means that somewhere others in other side of the globe will experience higher global mean sea level rise. So this is what it's basically showing, is that when you melt Greenland ice sheet in the near region, it's not going to feel that much rise. These gray regions is actually where the sea level will actually fall. And then these regions, you can see this gradient or changing in the color because of these different physical processes. And then here as well, retreating ice sheet in West Antarctica, uh, right next to it is going to experience sea level fall, and then smaller rise, greater rise, and then towards like, there's greater rise. So these equatorial regions like islands, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Maldives, Caribbeans, these are the regions that are going to experience the highest sea level rise, regardless of the ice source of the ice melting, because this is far from both ice sheet in Antarctica and Greenland. So if you go and look at, wait, can you see my NASA tool? You see this, right? Okay.
We're looking at the projected sea level rise
Yeah.
chart. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. So let's look at Antarctica, right? Let's go all the way up in here and then see. And you can see this minus sign. That means the sea level is going to fall, even though we are going to melt tons of ice sheets from Antarctica. And this is exactly why the Antarctic ice sheet in western region is going to experience sea level fall, because of just the explanation that I just gave you. The solid earth pops up and then the gravitational field gets weakened. So that causes sea level fall in this near field region close to the melting ice sheet, which is really interesting. And then these ties back to my research at LANL and also during my PhD is that um, so the description that I just gave you on how ice sheet changes the solid Earth and the gravitational field, that is called GIA, the glacial isostatic adjustment. So that means this Earth, after being depressed by the mass of the ice sheet, like pops up slowly over thousands of years and trying to reach this isostatic equilibrium. So it is called glacial isostatic adjustment. And my research is looking at how ice sheets behave under the influence of this glacial isostatic adjustment. And we can see, well, if you zoom in this, you can see this sea surface changes and this solid Earth, the land changes in its height. And so that is going to cause this non-uniform pattern of sea level change in response to different ice sheet changes. And so I study this mechanism and how future ice sheets will change under these different influences associated with GIA among all the other interactions that ice sheets have with other components of the Earth system, like with the atmosphere or mantle, convection, or this tectonic processes like earthquakes or volcanoes and things like that. Yeah. And also, so this is another powerful tool to communicate climate change with people. This is really simple and just really effective way of showing how temperature has been changing. So it's called warming stripes, and I just picked one from for Nigeria. So what it's showing is that the red colors show the temperature times in temperature that were warmer than average temperature between 1971 to 2000. So that's like 30 years average. And the closer you go to the right is the present day. So you can see how there has been this alternation between cold and warm weather, mostly due to natural changes. And then this is now where the human activities um, just show up, and how it has been just warming and hot for the past many years. So you can also find this online if you go and just type uh, warming stripes. Then you can just go and show your stripes. You can select regions or globe. You can go and see, let's see, North America, so Middle East, Central America, North America. We can go to, let's say, Canada. You can also see that how Canada has been alternating, and then now it's just showing red the past decades. Yeah, so
Okay.
this is warming stripe.
I have a question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as an expert in this field, how do you live out your research and daily life choices? What challenges do you face?
Yeah, so obviously we have all this energy generated by burning fossil fuels. So my daily choices is challenged to not use fossil fuel based energy, but that is challenging because it's the system that is built that way. So you can do your parts by I tend to avoid meat in my diet. So I tend to go and just try to make morally cautious decisions. So tend to avoid meat and try to just reduce some ground transportation. If I'm going somewhere, I would try to bike or take train. But at the same time, this has to be combined with changes in our system. So you guys probably, I don't know how it was during the COVID lockdown when you guys are in Nigeria, but a lot of places in the world just shut down. It just went into lockdown phase, right? And then what was really striking was that the global emission didn't decrease that much. So it only decreased by 7% during the pandemic lockdown compared to just our normal years. So that's, let's say, I just want to, I also kind of like looked up. Um, I don't see it anywhere, but um, yeah, basically what it indicated was that even though every human basically just worked from home, didn't commute, didn't use that much energy compared to, like, they didn't fly, they didn't drive, but then the only it only decreased by the global emission decreased by 7%. It just really means something. It means that whatever we do, it's not going to change the entire world. It has to be really combined with this reformation, systematic changes in our energy generation globally, um, transitioning from burning fossil fuels to renewable, using reusable energies, and that is really important as well. So my challenge as a scientist and as a human, I obviously try to minimize my usage of energy and try to make ethical choices. But at the same time, there are components of life that I cannot give up. Like I have to work, I have to go to work, therefore I have to drive and things like that. So yeah, I am challenged by balancing how much energy to use and also how much energy to put in to change the system that this world is uh, living on.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So what human practice or environmental management shifts would have to occur to make the biggest impact on climate change? And what can we do as individuals to make big impacts on climate change and reduce our ecological footprint?
So based on what I just said, right? You can do all the things that you should, but I think what you can do is really learning about how energy system is built in this current world, and then also how we can really move forward. Um, just by us not eating red meat, for example, it cannot is not going to change the world. So you can do that, but also I would like the young generations to really learn and care about what the world holds, in terms of, like how we can change the system and what should be changed. And as you have seen, we have seen projections of sea level beyond 2,100 years, and we are probably going to be all gone by then, right? So then I think it also has to be philosophically coherent that why do we care about climate change and sea level change when we are going to be all dead? And that really gives you some philosophical challenges. Like, does that mean that, oh, because I'm not going to be alive in 100 years anyways, like I won't care what I do now? It can't be just that, right? It has to come with humanity and love and care for your neighbors and other people, other humans on the globe, on in the world, so that you really care about this, and why you should care about this. So I would like
Yes.
to, yeah.
And then before that, I wanted to ask a question. Will taking action make our lives better or safer, or will it only make a difference for the future generations? But I guess that's what you just said. Like
Hmm.
it's going to make a difference for the future generations.
Wait, sorry, Moyo, could you say again? Could you say that again? I didn't. Yeah.
Will taking action make our lives better or
Mhm.
safer, or will it only make a difference for the future generations?
I mean, we are going to make difference for us, for sure. Is that what you're? Um, that's why how I want to answer. So it's not just about me. What we do right now will matter for us, but it will also matter even more for future generations. So when we act on all of these things that we have to do, we have to. I think the motivation will have to come from, oh, it's for me, but it's also not just for me. It's not just about me. It's about people who are suffering right now. So climate change is also a justice issue. You probably also cover this in your class, but uh, you, it's really a lot of developed countries like North America, United States, European countries. These countries have already burnt so much fossil fuel and they have developed their economy. And then the ones who are taking this greatest hit from climate change are those poor ones that are in these equatorial regions who have not done anything to make this global warming happen. So it's really what I did or what people did can affect other people in the world. So what the COP26, this national leaders are going to talk about is really, yeah, like a lot of countries like Saudi Arabia or these countries who are trying to develop like India, Indonesia, they're saying, "Oh, but you are the one who emitted all this greenhouse gas emissions and we are trying to catch up with our poor economy and now you're telling us to not limit global emission? That's unfair. What are you going to do for you? What are you going to do for us if we commit to reaching global emission of net zero by 2050? Like what is really the most justifiable way so that everyone in the globe can still develop and give chance for this developing countries to continuously develop, but still limiting the global emission. So it is also a very sensitive topic for this global justice issue.
Yeah, I have a question as well.
Hmm.
Do you think subjects like this should be compulsory in every school?
What do you think?
Yeah, I said, do you think subjects like this one should be compulsory in
Hmm.
every school? Oh,
Yeah.
me?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think they should be, because a lot of people are not aware of things like this, and they mostly think it's not that serious. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, the ocean is rising. Okay, we'll just like take the rising water out. Lots of people don't really care
Hmm.
because they're not aware and they're not seeing how urgent these kind of problems are. So I
Yeah.
think they should be compulsory in every school.
Yeah. I think I totally agree with you. It's whether it's in the form of classes or form of outreach activities or just daily life information. I think it is important to understand both physical processes, so just like the scientific processes that we just saw, and also this humanitarian philosophical values that need to, I think those need to be shared. Just like we talked about, oh, why do we have to care about what's happening in Indonesia? I don't even have family there. What's going to happen in next 100 years? Like, why do I care? I won't be alive anyways. All these philosophical questions have to be discussed. And yes, I think I do agree with you that this has to be communicated and people need to be aware of what's going on. And yeah, in whatever form of yeah, in whatever form, whether it's classes or something else.
When you were here at NCC, 15 years ago or more, like, was this ever something that you remember being taught about, or was your initial interest in the physical sciences initiated in high school, or did it come later for you?
It came later for me. I don't remember having this kind of course or having this kind of discussion. I think the closest course would be the would have been world geography taught by Mr. Leg. I remember they were talking about the world hunger. I wasn't in the class, but my friends were telling me about yeah, that. So that was interesting. But yeah, it came later for me, and there have to be so much more advancement here in terms of, well, like when we talk about global warming, it used to be, just showing pictures of polar bears on melting ice sheets in Arctic, and those are just one piece of puzzle that's out there. It's a lot more than that. So when people talk about global warming, then they think, oh, polar bears, but and that kind of gives you the sense of remoteness. It feels like it's not really something that you are involved in. It is not your problem, but it's really about um, everything. And also global rise and sea level rise, a global temperature rise and sea level rise. It's not just the sea level that is going to flood regions, but it's also more about extreme heat events, extreme flooding events, and heat waves. Yeah, storm changing in rainfall pattern, storm tracks, and changing in rainfall pattern, and changes in climate, changing the conditions for agriculture, and changing the endangering global food security and water management. It's just so much more than melting ice sheets and lands getting submerged. So that's somehow should be educated. So it is, I think, important to talk about this kind of issues in the class, like you guys
Yeah.
are doing.
Yeah, we talk about subsistence, food subsistency, and the need for us to know how to grow our own food and to
Hmm.
prepare for a possible future within our lifetime to know how to supplement our food chain, our food supply,
Hmm.
because like the pandemic showed us that there's interruptions to our food supply or supply chain. Like the pandemic, could it be because of climate change that affects our agricultural crops around the world, food
Hmm.
supplies, supply chains being interrupted, food costs and prices on the rise and things like that, and the
Hmm.
cost of fuel. We were talking yesterday about how, yeah, we're all on board for eliminating fossil fuels, but does that come with a cost in the pocket of the user? You know, that
Hmm.
here in Canada, prices of, and in the States as well, prices for fuel for our vehicles is so high,
Hmm.
that as we eliminate, reduction in fuel, Canada, Justin Trudeau at COP26 just announced in his speech that Canada is going to reduce its amount of resourcing fossil fuels and reduce how much it produces and sells around the world, but that's going to shoot the price of fossil fuels up, and so it just gets into this quandary um, of snowball effect of, one decision or one thing then affects another and affects another, and what we should be prepared for in practical ways.
Hmm.
This generation needs to be prepared for their adult hood to have the direct effects of this
Hmm.
in their lives and in their pockets, and what kind of skills should they have. I love how you said be a system changer, that these young ladies that are here, Casimir had to step away, but that these young ladies that are here in this class can be system changers. They can be whatever field they pursue in education. They can be people who push back to change the system or set a new trajectory for whatever area they pursue to be system changers.
Hmm.
Because yeah, as individuals, we do very little to affect anything, but
Yeah.
if we're people like myself as an educator, I feel like that's my role, is to then I can multiply the system changers by educating larger numbers of kids so that they go out to become system changers, and then it exponentially grows.
Hmm.
So yeah, I love
For
that
sure.
challenge.
Yeah. And I just want to note, just add on to that slightly, is that so when a lot of people were trying to stop this climate change action, then one of the narratives that they say is that, oh, it's you have to change your behavior, you have to change your lifestyles. And they keep focusing and emphasize on um, just changing individual behaviors. And that can be really dramatic, effective in terms of focusing the shifting the focus from needing to change the system to change your individual actions, so that the system, all these fossil fuel companies, can just keep doing what they are doing, what they've been doing. So that is one thing that we have to keep our antennas on. And that's also why I talked about having the system changed when I was asked about um, sharing my personal challenges and personal choice of actions, because this false narrative of, oh, it's not the system, it's you can try and you can change the world, it's the dangerous narrative where people can just dig in the rabbit hole and saying, oh yeah, I have to focus on my healthy living and clean living, rather than focusing and advocating the government and politics or lawmakers to change the system. So that's the both two things that have to come together, and we have to be, yeah, paying attention to those false narratives.
Yeah, there's definitely pop culture, pop media, right? That's saying, oh, we should reduce our single-use plastics and don't use plastic straws, and that's going to change the world, right? And
Yeah,
it micro focuses it, and it's
totally
almost
agree.
a distraction measure, right? Let's
Yeah.
distract us from the bigger issues of systematic change to individual change that actually does nothing, right?
So one thing that was sorry, oh actually I just one small thing is that, you know, you've heard carbon footprint, into individual carbon footprint. So that was actually developed by fossil fuel based companies to change the focus of the people, focus of people from the systematic changes to individual action changes. And that's something that they've been doing, which is really interesting. So everyone started calculating their personal carbon footprint,
We do here in class.
right?
We just did it the other day because it's actually in our curriculum.
Okay.
The Ministry of Ontario curriculum actually for this course has one of our curriculum requirements is for them to calculate their own ecological footprint and to, you know, how many earths did it say we use up? Like some of you are like using up 1 point whatever earth, and yeah, like, and it makes you feel so guilty, right?
Right,
And
exactly. That's it. That
yeah,
was invented by carbon fossil fuel industry.
interesting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
That's exactly, yeah. They're very sneaky.
Yeah. Well, you've shared so much with us, and we really appreciate your time. Was there anything else that is just burning in you that you want to share with us that maybe we've left out or not focused on, or did we hit on everything?
I mean, I want to ask to the girls and everyone, if they, because I know you've prepared the questions and you've basically asked the questions, but I wonder if you have any follow-up questions and or anything you want to say.
Yes. So, do you support Greta Thunberg, the Swedish activist? Do you support her and what she's doing?
Do I support?
Greta Thunberg.
Oh, what do you mean? Do I support? Like she is. So I mean, I think she is a very powerful figure in gathering people to call for climate action. So in that regard, I have huge respect for us, and I do
Yes.
support her in a way that she is, yeah, she is requesting, she's advocating changes, and she is just, yeah, relentlessly asking the global leaders to act. So yeah, she is a very powerful figure and we need that. So yeah, but I don't personally know her or so yeah.
Okay, I was asking because like some people think that she just inflicts like fear in the people and she doesn't really advocate for hope and give people like hope that we can still change it. But then like some people say that she's just like inflicting fear in people and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So,
Right, right. Okay, I see. Yeah, so I don't know, I don't follow her very closely and I don't know everything that she says. Um so and then I don't, so I'm not in the position of judging her in terms of her personality and who she is. And I know she gets a lot of attacks on like, oh, you're talking about reducing global um, emission, but you just flew from here to there, or you sailed from here to there, but then you flew your captains of your sailboat from somewhere else. So like you've basically, so it's all that attacks. But she is, and I don't know what her motivation is, if her motivation is actually really from the love for humanity, or because she has some really strong opinion or personal motivation. I don't know. But regardless, what she's doing is good for humanity, and she is asking for what we need to do. So just looking at that, yeah, I think she's being a very powerful figure.
I think her age is very interesting too, right? She's a voice of their generation. She's only a year or so older than they are, you know,
Mhm.
and to be so young and have that voice. The world leaders have spoken to, you know, how many TED Talks has she done, and
Mhm.
world leaders advocating for this. Pretty interesting voice to listen to, and if we're trying to inspire a generation of system changers, like
Mhm.
she's definitely someone to connect to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I also think that in regards to our generation and being able to make individual changes that have high impact, because there's a written question that we talked about in class, things like companies like Tesla that promote using and that products like electric cars so that you don't like use fueled cars. I think because of our generation's obsession with pop culture and the need to constantly be on every trend and everything, I feel like that can be weaponized and be used for climate change. Like the impact that that like Save the Turtles movement from 20, I think 19 had on a lot of people's views. Like stores like Starbucks changed like all their straws to plastic straws. Now you go not to toilet to paper straws instead of plastic ones. The obsession with modern pop culture can really be used against climate change.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it can be kind of, it can make many things blurry. So, for example, oh, use your reusable cups, like bring your tumblers, like this, and then you say, oh, you're using this, and therefore you're saving environment. But at the same time, what is not communicated is that to make this one tumbler, the global emission or the energy use that you need to you use the energy that you use, or global greenhouse gas emission that you um, just increase by making this one thing, um, does that really offset your use of your saving environment? And like that kind of critical thinking and decision has to be always there when you use your electric cars, like how are the batteries going to be recycled after they're all dead? Like what about the carbon emission that you put in to make that one battery that goes into the electric car? So I totally agree with you, um, that it can be, this kind of narrative can be used abusively, for the advantage of someone's business model, or yeah, just it can confuse people and kind of like generating a trend that really doesn't help the earth. And which goes back to our discussion earlier, like about the importance of having this kind of course, or having discussions about this kind of things, is that it really helps us to look around and not just get swayed in the trend. Well, using electric cars is definitely the next thing, but then the things that goes into that we also have to know those aspects. So yeah, being critical and being vigilant on what's being used or what's being abused is important. Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to ask if you think it's possible for like the whole world to transition from fossil fuels to like renewable energy, and how fast do you think it'll take?
Yeah, so it's totally possible. The technology is there. The technology is there. The reason why the transition in this reformation in energy sector was challenging is because of all this um, yeah, fossil fuel industry is pushing back and trying to just confuse people. But the technology is there. So the false narrative, obviously, one of the first narratives is also that reusable energy is, like not an alternative. Like it's also going to increase global emissions and things like that. That's like one thing that they say to stop us from doing climate actions. So um, it is possible, and how fast will again depend on how the global communities come together and negotiate. We just talked about, like how a lot of countries have already developed burning fossil fuels. And then now we're asking other countries who are about to develop to stop emitting greenhouse gases. And it's really about justice issue, and now it'll really come down to politics. Yeah. And yeah, how the global economy will work based on new energy sector and sorting out all those issues is going to really affect how fast we can transition out of fossil fuel economy.
So, Kemeny, you had said you want to go into international law and become a lawyer. Here you go. You can be one of those people that fights that political system and works for that change.
Totally. Yeah, it's on that note, it's really important. For now, we have so many scientists just trying to understand the natural system, but then a lot of times scientists feel so powerless because we are doing all this work, we are giving all this information, and we are telling or giving information to all of the countries and politicians on what to do, and we have to act now. But at the end of the day, the decisions made, decisions are going to be made by those politicians and global leaders. So, and then they're going to make that decision based on their economic advantages or disadvantages. It's not just about how well we understand the processes of the earth and knowing what we are doing or what humans are doing to the earth. It's still going to be up to the politicians and global leaders to make um, the fate of our humanity. So international law and environmental laws, those are the next thing that will be very important, and also bridging this gap between the normal, like, layman's community and politics and scientists is also really important. Yeah.
Ladies, have you asked all of your questions you want to ask? Yeah. Holly, is there anything else that you feel like we're missing, like any major thing that you had prepared or think that we should know about? We're running down on time here. I
Right.
don't want to take much more of your time.
No, I think it's been great to discuss all of the things, and we've hit all the nails.
So many
Yeah.
nails.
Too many.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope it wasn't too much or overwhelming or confusing.
Well,
But
I think
yeah.
actually, would you say like we've covered a lot of this? I think some of the new stuff to us is the land expansion, the thermal expansion, and the gravitational forces. We don't necessarily talk a whole lot about the physical science side of things in this course. So that was some new information for us. Was there anything else that kind of stood out that was new or reaffirmed things for you guys? Or do you feel like it kind of the expansion?
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, those physical sciences side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had more on those topic, but also it can get as deep as it goes. So
Yeah.
um,
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah, I just want to say that I think it's great that you are talking about this issue in the class. And I mean, it's great that I wish that I had this kind of class when I was at NCC, right? So it's great. And yeah, keep learning, keeping curious, and yeah, keeping optimistic. Yeah. And yeah, you guys are going to be awesome adults when you get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go be change makers, right?
Keep doing great. Yeah.
I hear that from me quite a lot. We need to be change makers, and in
Mhm.
small ways, but in big ways, and as a faith community too, not losing hope that God's got it in control, and that he has this world on a journey towards
Yeah.
his will
Yeah.
for the earth, right?
Yeah. For
Well,
sure.
thank you so much for giving us your time. This is your work day in your office, and so you've
Yeah.
given us so much of your time today. Thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
doing this. Yeah, I'd love to have you back again in the future. We'll have this course again next year, and hopefully I'll have more than 4 students in the course. But yeah, I would love to stay connected on your research and what you're doing. So thank you so much for your time today, Holly.
Thank you for inviting me. I had a great time.
All right, have a great day. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you too.
Okay.
Bye.